want you to take a second and just imagine your body's defense system. Usually this is your greatest protector, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's an elite, highly trained security force.
Right. Working around the clock, keeping you safe from viruses, bacteria, just all the external threats the world throws at you.
Yeah, constantly on guard.
But imagine if, for reasons that seem completely baffling, that elite force suddenly gets confused. Like it kicks down the door of its own headquarters, marches right up to the body's master thermostat.
The thyroid.
Exactly, the very gland keeping your entire metabolic engine running. And it mistakes it for a hostile intruder.
It's essentially the ultimate betrayal from within. You were looking at friendly fire on a biological level.
Friendly fire.
Yeah, where the weapons designed to save your life are, well, they're slowly and methodically destroying your own tissue.
And that biological friendly fire is the focus of today's deep dive. We are unpacking Hashimoto thyroiditis.
It's a really complex condition.
It is. And our goal here isn't just to, rattle off a list of symptoms and call it a day. We want to understand the actual mechanics of the most common cause of hypothyroidism.
Because there is so much more to it than just feeling tired.
So much more. We're going to explore the surprising environmental triggers that set this off, an incredibly fascinating evolutionary connection between your neck and your stomach, and what it physically means for an immune system to go to war with itself.
And to map all of this out, we are relying on a highly detailed clinical review. It was published in Stat Pearls on the NCBI bookshelf.
It's a great source.
It really is. It offers a very comprehensive, rigorous look at the etiology, the pathology, and the management of this condition.
So we want to frame this for you as a biological mystery. Because even if you don't have a thyroid condition, the way your body's internal systems communicate, or in this case, catastrophically miscommunicate, it's just fascinating.
It really makes you rethink how fragile the whole system can be.
Right. So to understand this broken thermostat, let's start at the beginning. When did the medical community first realize this friendly fire was even happening?
Well, we have to rewind to 1912. There was a Japanese physician named Haruto Hashimoto.
Hence the name.
Exactly. He was observing patients who presented with noticeably enlarged thyroid glands. And when he actually took a closer look at the tissue itself under a microscope, he saw something that, well, it just shouldn't have been there.
What was it?
He called the condition struma lymphomatosa. What he was documenting was a thyroid gland that was absolutely packed with lymphocytes.
Which are white blood cells, right?
They'd completely invaded the tissue.
So instead of normal thyroid cells doing their job, the security force had breached the building and just set up camp.
They had completely occupied it. And one of the most striking aspects of this invasion is who it primarily targets. The demographics are heavily skewed.
How so?
It affects women 7 to 10 times more often than men.
Wow. 7 to 10 times. That is a massive disparity.
It is. Furthermore, the incidence really peaks when patients are between the ages of 45 and 55.
Okay, when you think about that age range, 45 to 55, that perfectly aligns with perimenopause and menopause.
Right, which complicates things.
You have to imagine how incredibly frustrating it is for these patients. They go to a doctor complaining of fatigue or weight gain, and it gets dismissed as just getting older or hormonal changes.
Happened all the time.
When in reality, their cellular engine is being systematically invaded. So if we zoom in on that invasion, how does the immune system actually carry out the attack? I mean, does it just send in one type of cell to do the damage?
No, it's much more coordinated than that. The immune system has different specialized divisions, and in Hashimoto's, 2 distinct branches go rogue.
Okay, what's the first one?
First, you have the humoral response, which is driven by B cells. These B cells start producing autoantibodies, specifically the thyroid peroxidase antibody, or TPO antibody.
TPO, got it.
Yeah, and you'll find this in over 90% of people with Hashimoto's.
Okay, so if we're visualizing this, the B cells are acting like forward scouts. They aren't dropping the bombs. They are slipping behind enemy lines, or what they think are enemy lines, and painting a laser target on the thyroid tissue, flagging it for the rest of the immune system.
That scout analogy works perfectly, actually, because once those B cells tag the tissue with antibodies, they step back.
And then what?
That brings us to the second branch, the cellular response. This is driven by T cells, specifically CD8 positive cytotoxic T cells.
So if the B cells are the scouts...
These T cells are the heavy infantry. They recognize the laser targets painted by the B cells move in and actively begin destroying the thyroid follicular cells.
Man, the infantry just scorches the earth.
They really do. And over time, this leads to progressive inflammation and fibrosis, which is essentially scarring of the gland.
Yikes.
In fact, if a pathologist looks at this damaged tissue under a microscope, they see something very distinct. The normal thyroid cells physically alter their appearance as they try to survive the onslaught.
Wait, they change how they look?
Yeah, they swell up and become packed with these pink staining granules. In the medical field, these are called Hurley or Ashkenazi cells.
It sounds like the cellular equivalent of a distress signal. Like the cells are mutating just to try and weather the storm.
It's a very stressful environment for the tissue.
But here's the thing that really confuses me. Normally, the immune system has checks and balances. We don't just walk around destroying our own organs every time a B cell makes a mistake. Why is the infantry allowed to just keep attacking?
Well, that brings up a critical failure in the system. Normally, you have specialized cells called regulatory T cells, or TREGs.
TREGs.
Think of them as the peacekeepers. Their entire job is to promote immune tolerance, calm things down, and call off the infantry if they start attacking healthy tissue.
So they're the supervisors.
Right. But in Hashimoto's, these peacekeeper TREGs are malfunctioning. They're downregulated, meaning they are essentially asleep at the wheel while the destruction happens.
Wow. Okay, so the scouts paint the target, the infantry attacks, and the peacekeepers are completely missing in action. Exactly.
So this raises the biggest question. Why does this whole chain of command break down? Is this just like bad luck encoded in our DNA, or did something in the environment flip a switch?
It's a combination. Genetics absolutely load the gun. There's a strong familial predisposition, and researchers have linked it to genes like the human leukocyte antigen complex.
Which helps regulate the immune system.
Right. But genetics don't tell the whole story. The source highlights a fascinating Danish study that looked at monozygotic twins, identical twins who share the exact same DNA.
Right, so if it's purely a genetic disease, if one identical twin develops Hashimoto's, the other twin should inherently develop it too, 100% of the time.
You would think so. But the study showed that the concordance rate, the probability of both twins getting it, is only about 50%.
Wait, only 50%?
Yep, just 50%.
So that proves the environment must be the thing pulling the trigger.
Right.
It's a classic Goldilocks scenario where your genetics meet the exact wrong environmental conditions.
Ooh.
Exactly. So let's explore a few of those environmental triggers, starting with the hygiene hypothesis.
Okay, I've heard of this.
It's the idea that in highly developed, very sanitary environments, our exposure to microbes, parasites, and everyday dirt is drastically reduced.
I've heard this discussed with childhood allergies. The idea that if kids grow up in overly sterile homes, their immune systems don't have enough actual enemies to fight.
It's the exact same mechanism. The immune system evolved over millions of years to constantly battle a barrage of pathogens.
Right. We used to be outside all the time.
Yeah, and when you take all those threats away through modern hygiene, the immune system doesn't just power down, it gets restless.
It gets bored.
Exactly, it becomes bored.
Yeah.
And a bored immune system is much more prone to misidentifying friendly tissue as a threat, leading to autoimmune attacks.
Okay, that makes sense. But here is something from the clinical review that I really want to push back on.
Oh, sure.
The source talks about the iodine paradox. I mean, we literally iodize table salt specifically to protect the thyroid and prevent goiters. How can iodine be a trigger for a thyroid disease?
It's a great question. Iodine is absolutely essential. The thyroid cannot manufacture hormones without it.
Right.
But this is where that Goldilocks principle really kicks in. The data shows that a mild iodine deficiency actually lowers your risk of developing Hashimoto's.
Lower risk.
Yeah. But if you have a chronic excess of iodine intake, it can trigger the disease in genetically susceptible people.
Wait, how does flooding the body with a good nutrient cause the immune system to attack?
It comes down to cellular chemistry. Inside the thyroid, there is a large protein called thyroglobulin, which acts as a scaffold to build thyroid hormones.
Okay.
When you introduce excessive amounts of iodine, that thyroglobulin protein gets heavily iodinated. Basically, so many iodine molecules attached to it that it physically distorts the shape of the protein. Because its structure has changed, it becomes highly immunogenic.
So it's like decorating a Christmas tree. A few ornaments are fine, but if you load it with so many ornaments that the branches are bending and warping, it doesn't even look like a tree anymore.
That is a very apt way to visualize it.
The immune system walks by, sees this highly distorted protein and thinks, that's foreign, that's an alien invader. Attack.
Exactly. You've provided the raw materials, but in such excess that the finished product looks like a threat. And iodine isn't the only element that needs to be perfectly balanced.
What else is there?
The review notes that deficiencies in other specific micronutrients also increase your risk. Selenium is a major one.
Selenium.
Yes, it acts almost like a biological rust-proofer. It's essential for enzymes that protect the thyroid cells from oxidative damage during hormone production.
So without enough selenium, the factory is essentially rusting from the inside out, causing damage that might attract the immune system's attention.
Precisely. Furthermore, deficiencies in vitamin D, which is a crucial immunomodulator that helps keep those peacekeeper T cells functioning.
Oh, right, the tregs.
Yes. Deficiencies in vitamin D and deficiencies in iron also play a massive role.
Iron. That's interesting. Usually people just associate iron with red blood cells and anemia. How does it connect to the thyroid?
Well, the primary enzyme the thyroid uses to make its hormones is called thyroid peroxidase.
Wait, that's the TPO enzyme, the one the B cells target?
That is the exact same enzyme.
Right.
And that enzyme is heme-dependent, meaning it requires iron to function properly.
Oh, wow.
So if a patient's iron deficient, their thyroid struggles to function, which can exacerbate the autoimmunity. And as you mentioned earlier regarding demographics, this is incredibly relevant for women of reproductive age who regularly lose iron during menstruation.
This paints such a complex picture. We have genetics loading the gun, and then a lack of selenium, low vitamin D, or a flood of excess iodine pulling the trigger.
It's the perfect storm.
And because there are so many different variables at play, it makes sense that Hashimoto's doesn't just show up overnight as a fully broken system. The source actually refers to it as a clinical chameleon.
It's a very fitting description. The presentation of the disease is incredibly heterogeneous. Most people actually start out in what is called a euthyroid state.
Euthyroid, meaning normal.
Right. That means if they go to the doctor and get a standard thyroid hormone blood test, everything looks perfectly normal. Their metabolism is fine.
But the attack is already happening.
Yes, the B cells and T cells are already there. The slow-moving siege has begun.
So on paper, they look healthy, but the clock is secretly ticking.
Right. And once those antibodies are present, the risk of developing overt hypothyroidism, meaning the gland is finally failing, goes up about 5% every single year.
And when that overt phase finally hits, that's when patients experience the classic symptoms. You know, the crushing fatigue, the unintentional weight gain, the brain fog, feeling cold even in the summer, brittle nails, heavy menstrual cycle.
All the classic signs.
And again, you can see how easily these symptoms are minimized by society, but it's literally the body's entire metabolic thermostat breaking down.
That is the end stage of the destruction. But before the gland completely fails, this clinical chameleon can do something very counterintuitive.
Oh, yeah, I wanted to ask about this.
A small proportion of patients actually present with something called hashitoxicosis.
I found this part of the notes fascinating. Hashitoxicosis is a phase where the patient presents with symptoms of hyperthyroidism and overactive thyroid, heart palpitations, anxiety, weight loss. How does a disease that destroys the thyroid cause it to work in overdrive?
It's important to understand that the gland isn't actually working in overdrive. It's experiencing a mechanical failure.
Okay, how so?
Remember the CD8-positive T cells, the infantry?
Yeah.
As they aggressively destroy the thyroid follicles, those cellular structures physically break open. The thyroid normally stores a large reserve of pre-made hormones.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Yeah, when the cells rupture, all of that stored hormone leaks directly into the bloodstream at the exact same time.
So it's quite literally like a dam breaking. The factory is being bombed by the immune system, but before it shuts down forever, the entire warehouse of stored inventory just floods the market at once.
That is exactly what happens. It causes a transient thyrotoxicosis. The patient feels like their thyroid is hyperactive, but it's really just the last gasp of the destroyed tissue leaking out.
That's wild.
And once those leaked stores are metabolized and cleared from the blood, the patient plummets into permanent hypothyroidism.
The fact that it can disguise itself as an overactive thyroid before crashing makes it so incredibly tricky to diagnose.
It's really tricky.
And there's another specific phase the source mentions that highlights how dynamic the immune system is: postpartum thyroiditis.
Yes, this is a phase that typically occurs around 6 months after childbirth, though it can manifest anytime within that first year.
Okay.
To understand it, we have to look at pregnancy itself.
Yeah.
During gestation, the maternal immune system naturally suppresses itself so that it doesn't recognize the fetus as foreign tissue and attack it.
Which is an amazing biological mechanism on its own.
It is. But after the baby is born, that immunosuppression lifts, and the immune system experiences a rebound effect.
Oh, it bounces back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In women who have underlying Hashimoto's, perhaps they were in that silent euthyroid phase we discussed. This post-pregnancy rebound can trigger an exaggerated, highly aggressive autoimmune response that rapidly attacks the thyroid.
So the security force has been held back and told to stand down for 9 straight months, and when it's finally unleashed, it wildly overcompensates and goes right for the thyroid.
Exactly. Usually, this postpartum attack is transient and resolves on its own, but for a portion of these women, it leads to permanent, lifelong hypothyroidism.
So we have this leaky, chronically inflamed factory in the neck, but here's the part of the Stat Pearls review that absolutely captivated me.
The gut connection.
Yes. This disease doesn't just affect the neck and your metabolism. It turns out the thyroid has a secret evolutionary sibling. And understanding this connection explains a whole host of secondary issues that someone listening right now might never have linked to their thyroid.
Right. If we are looking at the big picture, we have to address polyglandular autoimmune syndrome.
Let's get into it.
The clinical review highlights that anywhere from 10% to 40% of patients with Hashimoto's also suffer from gastric disorders.
40%.
Yes, specifically conditions like autoimmune gastritis, where the immune system attacks the lining of the stomach, or pernicious anemia, which affects vitamin B12 absorption.
Up to 40% is a massive overlap. That isn't a coincidence. Why is the immune system suddenly targeting the stomach when it's supposed to be fixated on the thyroid?
To understand that, we have to look all the way back to the very beginning of life, when you were just a developing embryo.
Okay, taking it way back.
During early embryonic development, there is a simple tube of tissue called the primitive gut. As the embryo grows, a tiny pouch pinches off from that gut tube and migrates upward into the neck.
Oh, wow.
That little pouch becomes the thyroid gland. They share the exact same endodermal origin.
Wait, so the thyroid is fundamentally built out of stomach tissue?
At their most ancient evolutionary blueprint, yes. And because they share this developmental origin, the thyroid follicular cells and the stomach parietal cells, the ones that make stomach acid, share very specific, highly specialized structural features.
Like what?
Well, for example, they are both polarized, meaning they have a clear top and bottom structure to pump elements in a specific direction. And they both have structures called apical microvilli.
Okay, let's break that down. Apical microvilli, basically microscopic finger-like projections on the surface of the cell that increase its surface area, allowing it to act like a highly efficient absorbent sponge.
Yes. Both the stomach and the thyroid rely on those sponge-like structures. And crucially, both types of cells have the unique ability to concentrate and transport iodine across their membranes.
Yeah, it makes so much sense of why those symptoms overlap. It's like two different branches of a massive corporation that are still running on the exact same legacy software.
That's a great way to put it.
Right. If a virus, or in this case a rogue autoantibody, figures out how to hack the code in the thyroid branch, it already knows exactly how to hack the stomach branch because they were built by the exact same developer using the same biological code.
The medical term for this phenomenon is molecular mimicry. The immune system is essentially cross-reacting because it recognizes the structural similarities between the two organs.
Wow.
So for a large percentage of patients, they don't just have a localized thyroid problem, they're dealing with a systemic autoimmune issue that is targeting any tissue sharing that specific developmental blueprint.
And this brings up a fascinating, albeit incredibly frustrating reality when it comes to treating this condition.
The medication absorption.
Yes, because the stomach is so often compromised by this evolutionary crossfire, just giving a patient a pill to fix the thyroid becomes this incredibly delicate balancing act of chemistry and timing.
The standard medical treatment for the hypothyroidism caused by Hashimoto's is a daily dose of synthetic thyroid hormone, most commonly levothyroxine,
Which has a long half-life of about 7 days, so it stays in your system, providing a steady stream of hormone.
But the major hurdle is getting that hormone into the bloodstream in the first place. The clinical data shows that between 62% and 84% of an ingested dose of levothyroxine is absorbed in the small intestine.
Okay.
But for that medication to dissolve and be absorbed correctly, the gastrointestinal tract requires a very specific, highly acidic environment.
And here is the brutal catch-22. Is up to 40% of these patients have autoimmune gastritis. Because of that shared evolutionary blueprint, their stomach's acid-producing cells are actively being destroyed, meaning they have chronically low stomach acid.
Exactly. This condition is called hypochlorhydria. Because they lack adequate stomach acid, their ability to absorb pharmaceutical-grade levothyroxine is severely disrupted.
That is so messed up.
It is. And this is precisely why patients are given very strict instructions. They must take the medication early in the morning, entirely on an empty stomach, with only water. They also have to wait at least an hour before drinking coffee or eating, and they must avoid taking it anywhere near calcium supplements, iron supplements, or proton pump inhibitors. All of those things bind to the medication or alter the gut pH, ruining the absorption.
I really want to pause and emphasize this because it highlights how frustrating the patient experience can be. You finally get diagnosed, you get handed a prescription, and the doctor says, take this on an empty stomach.
Sounds simple enough.
Right, but without context, that just sounds like a polite suggestion to avoid getting an upset tummy.
Yeah.
But when you understand the science, when they say take it on an empty stomach, it's not a suggestion. It's because your stomach's acid-producing cells might be actively compromised by the exact same immune system error that attacked your thyroid.
Exactly.
It is a strict structural necessity just to get the hormone out of the pill and into your blood.
Context changes everything in medicine. When a patient actually understands the mechanical why behind their instructions, their adherence to the treatment plan improves dramatically. They aren't just following a rule, they're actively managing their biology.
Aside from carefully timed hormone replacement, what else can be done? Because simply replacing the missing hormone doesn't actually stop the heavy infantry from attacking the tissue, right?
Currently, clinical guidelines focus primarily on disease management rather than prevention or a definitive cure. However, there is growing evidence supporting targeted interventions. We mentioned selenium earlier.
The rust proved her.
Yes. Studies show that a daily supplementation of 50 to 100 micrograms can offer modest benefits. It has been shown to improve subjective quality of life and in some cases actually reduce the levels of thyroid antibodies circulating in the blood.
Oh, that's huge.
Yeah, particularly for patients living in areas where the soil naturally lacks selenium.
What about dietary changes? I mean, if the gut and the thyroid are so fundamentally linked, can changing what you put in your stomach actually tell the immune system in your neck to stand down?
This is a highly active area of ongoing research. There is limited but very compelling evidence pointing toward the benefits of anti-inflammatory diets, the Mediterranean diet, or even an autoimmune gluten-free protocol.
Oh, really? How does that work?
The working theory relies on the concept of leaky gut syndrome. The idea is that if the gut mucosa, the lining of your intestines, is constantly inflamed by poor diet, the tight junctions between the cells begin to fail. Microscopic proteins that normally stay inside the digestive tract leak into the bloodstream.
And the immune system immediately flags those leak proteins as hostile invaders.
Exactly. The immune system mounts a systemic attack against these foreign proteins. And because of that molecular mimicry we discussed, where certain dietary proteins might look structurally similar to thyroid peroxidase, the immune system gets confused and ends up attacking the thyroid gland in the crossfire. So by healing the gut lining through diet, you theoretically reduce the leakage, which calms the immune system and reduces the crossfire hitting the thyroid.
So by treating the stomach, you are indirectly protecting the neck. It is all so deeply interconnected. It really reinforces why this requires such a comprehensive approach. You might need an endocrinologist to manage the hormone levels, a dietitian to address the gut health and selenium status, and a pharmacist to ensure the levothyroxine isn't being blocked by other supplements.
It is a complex web of overlapping systems. But by breaking down the mechanisms, we can start to see how the pieces fit together.
It is a complex web, but it's one we've managed to untangle quite a bit today. So to summarize this incredible deep dive for you, we started all the way back in 1912 with Haruto Hashimoto peering through a microscope, discovering an elite security force that had occupied its own headquarters.
A friendly fire.
Right. And then we explored the delicate Goldilocks zone of the iodine paradox, where providing too much of a vital building block actually warps the final product and paints a target on your own cells.
Like the over-decorated Christmas tree.
Yes. And finally, we arrived at the astonishing realization that the thyroid and the stomach are actually evolutionary twins, built from the exact same primitive tissue, fighting a shared war against a confused immune system.
And that is the ultimate takeaway here. Understanding the why, why the B cells tag the tissue, why the T cells destroy it, why the gut is so intimately involved. It empowers you.
Totally.
It allows you to understand the actual mechanics of your own biology rather than just blindly following strict medical instructions.
Absolutely. It makes the human body seem less like a fragile, broken machine and more like a deeply complex, beautifully interconnected ecosystem that occasionally just gets its wires crossed.
That's a perfect way to look at it.
Which leaves me with a lingering thought for you to ponder. We now know that the immune system attacks both the thyroid and the stomach in a coordinated crossfire because it remembers their shared origin as the primitive gut in the embryo. It really makes you wonder, what other organs in our bodies are secretly sharing ancient embryonic blueprints? And if the immune system remembers our evolutionary past so vividly, what other legacy code is hiding in our DNA, just waiting for the environment to flip the switch? Something to think about next time you check your internal thermostat.